We've all seen those eco-friendly labels, right? They promise we can go see the world without wrecking it. But what if just doing less harm isn't actually enough? In this explainer, we're going to look beyond that simple green label to explore a really powerful idea: regenerative travel. We're talking about leaving a place even better than you found it. And the blueprint for how to do that? Well, it might just come from some very ancient wisdom. So let's just start with the big question right out of the gate. Is ecotourism really the answer we think it is? I mean, it's grown into this massive global industry, but there's this growing feeling that even with the best intentions, this whole approach might not be enough to heal our planet or really support the communities who live there. And this quote right here, it just gets straight to the heart of the problem. Indigenous peoples are the stewards of about a quarter of the world's land. Think about that. Yet, they often get pushed to the sidelines, seeing almost no benefit from the tourism industry that's literally built in their backyards, on their ancestral lands. Yeah, $100 billion industry, but that number can hide a much darker reality. Too often, these beautiful resorts and pristine parks are built on land that belonged to indigenous communities for generations. Just look at the Maasai in East Africa. Many have been displaced from their ancestral homes to make way for conservation areas, cutting them off from their entire heritage and their way of life. And this is exactly why we need a total shift in how we think about this. It's time to move beyond just trying to sustain what we have left and really start to actively regenerate what we've already lost. So what's the actual difference? Well, on the one hand, you have sustainable tourism. That's all about minimizing your footprint, right? Basically doing less bad. But regenerative tourism, on the other hand, asks a much, much bigger question. How can our trip actively heal and improve this place? It's a huge shift from just, offsetting your carbon to actively rebuilding ecosystems and empowering the local communities. The problem, deep down, is that conventional tourism is often built like this machine for endless growth, which almost always leads to environmental damage and social inequality. Regenerative tourism basically flips that entire script. It puts the holistic health of the whole system, people and planet, ahead of just pure profit. So, where do we find the blueprint for this new way of thinking? Well, what's so fascinating is that these principles, they're not a new invention at all. They are deeply, deeply rooted in the worldviews of the original guardians of these lands. Just think about a modern buzzword like the circular economy. This quote is so powerful because it reminds us that this isn't some new tech bro idea. It's a philosophy of using resources without waste in a closed loop that indigenous peoples have been practicing for thousands of years. It's their intellectual property. See, instead of seeing humans as separate from nature, us over here, nature over there, many indigenous worldviews see this deeply interconnected web of life. As this visual shows, things like culture, ethics, and the environment aren't in separate boxes. They're all part of one single holistic system. And that's a world away from Western models that often treat nature as just another resource to be managed and exploited. A perfect example of this is the Maori concept of kaitiakitanga. It's not just about managing resources. It's a sacred duty of guardianship. And it comes from this core belief that people are genealogically linked to the land and the water. They're not just connected, they are family. And you have an unbreakable responsibility to care for your family. Okay, so that's the philosophy. Let's see how this actually works in the real world. Our first case study is going to take us high up into the Himalayas, where a community is using these very principles to fight a very modern crisis: garbage. And the scale of the problem here is just immense. Darjeeling, a super popular tourist spot, generates up to 45 metric tons of waste every single day. With no real infrastructure to handle it, a lot of that just pollutes the fragile mountain ecosystem. But here is where it gets inspiring. In response, a local organization called Tidy started the Zero Waste Andalon, which means Zero Waste Revolution. Now, this isn't some top-down corporate plan. It's a grassroots, people-powered movement. As you can see, they organize local people to go door-to-door, collecting and sorting waste, turning this massive problem into a community-led mission. And the results are, well, they're incredible. They have literally turned a dump site into a forest. They've diverted over 550 tons of waste from landfills and rivers, and they've helped entire villages go zero waste. And here's the key tourism connection. They've woven it right into their model. Visitors can actually come, volunteer, and learn, meaning their travel directly funds the ecological restoration of the region. How cool is that? All right, let's jump across the globe now to the Amazon, where indigenous communities are creating an incredibly powerful model for conservation using tourism. This is a total game changer. These lodges are owned and operated entirely by the indigenous communities themselves, and because they're the owners, they enforce really strict conservation rules, creating true sanctuaries for wildlife. And the revenue? It doesn't get shipped off to some foreign corporation. It goes directly back into the community, building schools, funding healthcare, and creating a stronger future for their people. So what you end up with is this amazing, virtuous cycle. The health of the rainforest becomes directly linked to the health and well-being of the community. So by choosing to visit these lodges, travelers are actively empowering local people to be the absolute best and most effective guardians of the Amazon. For our final example, we're going to return to Aotearoa, or New Zealand, to explore one of the most profound expressions of this entire regenerative worldview. This is a famous Maori wakataki, or proverb. Ko'au ko te awa, ko te awa ko awa. I am the river, and the river is me. Now, this isn't just a metaphor. It's a statement of identity. It reflects a worldview where the boundary between a person and their ancestral river just dissolves. They are one and the same being. And a philosophy like that completely redefines what tourism can even be. When you take a tour on the Wanganui River, which, by the way, has been legally recognized as a living person, the goal isn't just to see some beautiful scenery. The goal is transformation. It's an invitation to experience that deep connection firsthand and to begin to understand a profoundly different way of relating to the natural world. So from the Himalayas to the Amazon to Aotearoa, there's a really clear common thread, isn't there? The most powerful, most effective models for regeneration, they're not being designed in some corporate boardroom. They are emerging from the holistic, values-driven, and time-tested knowledge of indigenous peoples, the original guardians who have been practicing this stuff for millennia. And all of this leaves us with a really important question to carry forward. The next time you're planning a trip, think about this. How can you move beyond just trying to do less harm? How can you find those experiences that actively contribute to the healing of a place, ensuring that because you were there, it doesn't just survive, it thrives?